What's going on, guys? It's Jimmy here. Welcome to our daily show where we discuss everything going on here in our country that you need to know about here on a daily basis. Okay, we got a lot of stuff going on here today. The U.S. House of Representatives, underneath Republican control, and new House Speaker Kevin McCarthy have already passed their first bill. That's right, and I'll give you the details here on what it is and what it means going forward here. Also, classified documents found from President Biden that he wasn't supposed to have. And I'll give you the details here of what it is and how it differs from the classified documents that former President Donald Trump had. So we have a lot of big breaking news here today. We'll go over that here in this video. I'll catch up here to date on everything you need to know about here right now. So if you're new to our channel, if you haven't yet, make sure to click the subscribe button down below, then the bell icon so you don't miss out on any new videos. It's completely free to do so. And thank you so much for liking and sharing these videos. All right, let's jump right in. Here we go. Okay, first bill out of the new Republican majority House would cut $71 billion from the IRS, but would cost $114 billion. If that's not confusing to me or to you, you guys can let me know your thoughts here in the comments. Yeah, the Republicans, it's kind of ironic. They want to cut $71 billion from the IRS, and yet it would cost $114 billion. Here's the details on this. Yeah, House Republicans pass the repeal of the IRS funding boost as its first bill in the majority. House Republicans passed their first bill of the 118th Congress here, voting along party lines to cut $71 billion from the IRS. The legislation will not be taken up by the Democratic-controlled Senate, though, and President Biden said he would veto the cuts if they somehow arrived at his desk, which could happen if they kind of force it to happen via compromise. And this does happen in Congress sometimes. Before the vote, the Congressional Budget Office said that the legislation would increase the federal deficit by $114 billion over the next 10 years because along with the increase of IRS hiring would have actually bring in revenue. So believe it or not, when you bring in IRS agents, you bring IRS employees, and they actually pay for themselves because through IRS enforcements and audits and things like this, they're actually a net positive. So you guys can let me know your thoughts on this. Also, there's it's a double-edged sword here because we've had people, well, thousands or maybe even millions of people here waiting on tax refunds here. We actually just had a big breaking story. I just did a video here on it like yesterday or so that you can go watch that video. I'll link you to it here at the end of this video. IRS actually just announced it was like 12 or 14 million people getting checks from the IRS. An average check of $1,232 sent out to 12 to 14 million people. Checks being sent out from the IRS. So again, they need a lot of people to do these, to process these, to go through these, the details of these. And again, without people being able to work on this, a lot of people, they physically can't do these here. And they had to go through tax returns. They had to go through all sorts of things like this here. And I've also seen thousands of comments in the comment sections throughout the months here of people saying, I've been waiting on my tax refund for months. Some people saying they've been waiting over a year for their tax refund. So if you had to file an amended tax return, if you had any type of error at all, This is where your tax refund gets put in the pile, so to say, where it will take forever, figuratively speaking. Yeah. So, if your tax return or your tax refund goes through smoothly, you can get it in a timely fashion. But if anything goes wrong with it, or if there's any type of error at all, which ends up happening for millions of people, or if there's an amended tax return, or if anything happens at all, good luck, because it ends up taking months or sometimes over a year, some people 2 years, to wait on their tax refund. And this could be thousands of dollars for a lot of people. And when you have to wait a year or two or months to get this, I mean, that's a nightmare. The other problem here is there's not enough people to answer the phones at the IRS. And if you've had to call the IRS recently at all, it's sometimes your worst nightmare. If you've ever had to talk to customer service anywhere else, it can be pretty bad. The IRS or the Social Security Administration can be really even much, much worse. You've seen kind of a horror movie here lately. It's calling the IRS or the Social Security Administration can sometimes be as bad as that. It depends. Sometimes you can get through. Sometimes you can't. But a lot of times you can wait on hold for an hour, and the automated system will say, "Sorry, there's nobody available to take your call. Please try again," and will literally just hang up on you. So, yeah, and the problem is if they don't hire new people, there's not enough people to even to talk to you or to handle your tax refund. So, you guys, let me know your thoughts on this. But President Biden said he would veto this if it somehow made it to his desk. So the Republicans passed this in the House, though, and it would actually cost American taxpayers $114 billion over the next 10 years. So it would actually cost more money than it would to pay for the IRS agents. Yeah, so Democrats approved 80 million in IRS funding, but it would cost 114 billion over the next 10 years. You can figure that one out, guys. The IRS says the money will be used to hire 87,000 new employees over the next 10 years. So I always get people saying, well, where's all these new IRS agents? So it's going to take 10 years to hire all these people. Also remember that, they really don't get paid all that well. And compared to other agencies, it's going to take time to hire these people, and compared to other companies, and it's going to take a while. So they've probably only hired a few thousand at this point, and for the whole country, that's not that much. Not that much. So nonetheless, this bill's only passed in the House. The Senate says they're not even going to take it up at this point unless the Republicans force a vote somehow and says, we're not going to pass something else unless you pass this, which could happen. Which could happen because sometimes that happens in Congress. They say, well, if you want this, I want this. And we've seen that kind of forcible compromise happen sometimes in Congress. So I'll keep you up to date here. Next up, we're seeing this big breaking story here about some classified documents that, now current President Biden has, which is, so this is a very different story here. And again, I try to remain nonpartisan because, again, I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I just don't see blue or red. I try to just look at things from a realistic point of view, just like, I don't think that illegal immigrants should just come across the border. And I don't agree with either party on everything. I just don't see that way. Okay. But this is a very different story here for a couple different reasons. So they found these classified documents kind of locked in this locker that had basically just been forgot about for a long time. Now, it's different because as soon as they found them, they basically gave them over to the National Archives the very next day. Okay. These go back to when Biden was vice president is when these documents come from. Okay, so they're apparently pretty old documents. there's a couple differences here. Is that number one, that so first, they're very old. Number two is that Biden's the president now. So it's weird because technically, like, if he had them in his possession, which, they were in a locker, but this is where it kind of goes back to, well, would Trump had them kind of in lockers and stuff like that. Biden's the president right now, so technically he would be able to have stuff like this, even though it was just in a locker. But this is where it kind of gets where, like, Biden, Trump, Biden, Trump. Remember, Biden's the president right now, so he would actually have authority to actually have classified material per se, because literally, if anybody's allowed to have classified documents, it would be the president of the United States. But nonetheless, as soon as they found these documents, they gave them back to the National Archives the very next day. The difference here, well, that's one of the differences here. When former President Donald Trump, when the National Archives knew he had all these documents after he wasn't president anymore. So when you're not president anymore, you have to give them back. Okay. The other problem here is that, the FBI was, involved with the search and seizure from former President Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago because the National Archives was trying to get the documents from former President Donald Trump for like 2 years. That's a very different story than, finding these documents that were locked in a locker, and as soon as the documents were found, they were given back to the National Archives the very next day. Very different story. So the National Archives was trying to get these documents from former President Donald Trump for like 2 years, or however long it was, and Trump wouldn't give them back. In fact, at one point, Trump said that after the FBI got the documents back for the National Archives, that he wanted them back for his personal memoirs. After they got them back, that Trump wanted them back to keep. So you can see the stark difference here. So when these Biden files were found, they gave them back to the National Archives the very next day. So there wasn't a 2-year fight. And that's the problem of what caused the search and seizure here. You can see the difference here. So we're going to get a lot of kind of political, Trump actually came out and said that Biden's homes should be searched by the FBI, and even the White House should maybe be searched. You would search the White House. Of course, there's classified documents in the White House. It's the White House. Yeah, you gotta see the irony here. Yeah. So you guys can let me know your thoughts here on this. The difference is that when the National Archives asks for the documents, you give them back. You don't string it out over months and months and months of time, which would then cause subpoenas. And then when you ignore the subpoenas, it's going to cause a raid. It's going to cause a search and seizure. That's the big difference here. So when you don't comply with giving the articles and the information back, that's what's going to cause the FBI to come and take the documents back. So, yeah, you guys can let me know your thoughts here on this. But yeah, of course, this is both of the classified documents being kind of probably both blown into big issues. But you can clearly see the difference here. I think that the moral of the story is if you're found as a presidents obviously have a lot of documents. Yeah, so when it's found that you have a document that you're not supposed to from X amount of time before, give it back. Give it back. So that goes without being said. You guys can let me know your thoughts here on this. And we're going to be seeing a lot of back and forth between Republicans and Democrats now that the Republicans have control of the House. And I think we might be seeing a lot of back and forth here as well with the Trump-Biden issue, and probably going to see this going forward here, as there might be the next presidential battle here as well. So let me know your thoughts here in the comments. I'll keep you up to date here. New videos come out here every day at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Make sure to subscribe down below if you haven't yet. It's completely free to do so. And click the bell icon after you subscribe. And thanks for hitting the like button for us as well. Here's some videos you can watch next. Here's the video about the IRS sending out $1,232 checks. And here's some good news about for Social Security. So click on one of those videos next. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next video.